Craig, why not? Let's go ahead and get started. But let's start with this question that came up, just so that everyone. So
Page 28.
If someone wants to read this is in
Golf Digest.
Golf Digest.
No,
Golf Magazine.
Ask the rules guy. In match play, I putted to within inches of the cup, and my opponent conceded the tap in. As I went to pick up my ball, I saw his putt rolling toward me, but I only had time to get out of the way. His ball then banked off mine and into the hole for a half. Since my putt had been given, is my ball still technically in play? That's the question.
What was the Craig? What was your guys' discussion?
Discussion. You can give me the answer.
No, he read the question.
Yeah, here's the answer. Before I turn it off.
Yeah, the answer says, if a putt has been conceded, is the ball still present? The existential question at play is fascinating, and so are the relevant rules. Had you let it be known you wanted to pick up the ball before your opponent played but weren't given the chance, your opponent would incur a loss of hole penalty. If not, there's nothing in the rules that states a conceded putt must be moved before anyone else plays. In a way, you're lucky. Had you moved your ball at rest while another ball was in motion, an action that could have impacted play, you would have lost the hole, even though you're just trying to prevent the ricochet that in fact took place.
Even a conceded putt.
Yeah. He says, you know what? Just forget the rules. You need Descartes and I need aspirin.
SR?
I think, again, the statement there is that if you say you want to pick your ball up and the guy doesn't give you a chance to pick it up, then he loses the ball.
If you said you wanted to pick it up.
Yeah, that's what I said. If you said that you wanted to pick your ball up.
But the guy didn't say anything. He just
have to hit your ball for him to lose the hole.
Correct. Yeah, if he, well, I don't know. I assume that.
He
The
doesn't.
mere fact that he putts as you're going to get your ball, I don't think would occur.
I think it's not
Even him, even his.
Considered part of the what's the status of the ball that's been taken out of play? Let's say it's been lifted and marked on a putting green and then moved to a different spot. What's that?
It's equipment.
It's equipment. If you strike the other player's equipment, there's no penalty.
Well, but that you're right. So it's just deflected, and the player has a choice of either replaying or not. So
I'm going to have the hole. I'm sure it's
So
not
the
like
question
replay.
is, well, so if the player removes the ball out of the way, even if it doesn't hit the ball, that's still a penalty, correct? As long as it was,
That's a ball. That's a ball interfering or assisting in play,
Right.
and now you've removed it while that ball was in motion. You can't.
If there was likely chance of it affecting that shot.
but you can move your equipment to avoid a player's ball hitting your equipment. You can move the equipment without penalty. Right?
But that ball that's sitting there is not equipment, or it's mobile because it's,
It's taken-
even though it's been
Right.
It
conceded,
is.
right?
Once it's taken out of play,
It's taken-
Yeah,
it's
it
not
should
in
just
play.
Take it out of play.
it's no longer a ball in play.
So let's see, that would be in 24.
I don't do that.
So then, Greg, what you're saying is that the magazine's wrong, right?
I don't think there'd be a penalty for you lifting the ball. That's like lifting your equipment, right?
I
But
think
here,
so.
he left the ball, even though it's conceded. When does that ball become equipment?
So let's
He
look
also
at the
says if you lifted
definition.
the ball, it would have been a penalty on player A.
No, it doesn't say it. It says if he moved it while the ball was in motion, then the guy whose ball was moved gets penalized. Except if the ball who's being picked up said, I'm gonna go get that ball, and the other guy hit it and then hit the ball before he got a chance to remove his ball, then the putter would have gotten a penalty.
Well, if you look at the note at 21-1, says when another ball is in motion, a ball that might influence the movement of the ball in motion must not be lifted. Penalty for breach of rules, loss of hole.
Yeah, but
It's on
once
page
he-
352.
The thing is, once that putt, that play has been conceded, the ball is, it's no longer in play for him.
21-1.
Isn't that equipment?
Yeah, 21-1, the
Oh.
note at the bottom, Greg, and 21-1, or 22-1, excuse me, on page 352, 22-1.
Maybe one finished.
352.
Here's the thing. Ball is in play from the time you make a stroke at it in the teeing ground until it's hold, unless it's LOLS, lost, out of bounds, lifted, or substituted, regardless of whether the rules allow it. So it's none of those things. So, but it's not still in play because the whole, I mean, it counts as whole. I mean, so it's I guess that's the answer. It's just an object. It's not equipment because it doesn't fit the definition of equipment either. So it's
No.
just an, I mean, it would be like picking up
A stone.
a stone, exactly right. Let's make it a big round stone that was in the way of the ball that was being putted. You could, I think it's 1.2. You can't exert influence on something where it's going to affect the movement of a ball, or how to say it, the outcome of the play.
The outcome, yeah, the stroke.
See, a ball being played at the hole, though, is equipment when it has been lifted.
Okay, guys, we got a decision that might help.
But
2-4/8.
2-4/8. Player can see the opponent's next stroke and plays before the opportunity to lift.
What page is that?
It's page 42.
Thank you.
Yeah, they said he wanted to lift the ball.
Yes, yes, A states he wants to.
Well, regardless of whether it struck his ball.
He said,
Yeah, but there's no refusal there.
that's right.
Does he A stated he wanted to lift his ball, though?
Yeah, so let's
That's
so let's say that
So that
A doesn't.
It isn't there.
I think if you look at the definition of equipment, I think Jim's right here. In that you look at the definition of equipment, and the way that I read this, okay, so the equipment is anything used, worn, held, or carried by the player or the player's caddy, except any ball that the player has played, past tense, at the hole being played. So I don't think that ball is equipment.
It's not considered equipment
What
at
about
that point.
Right, exactly. So then it's just an outside agency.
Like a
And-
big rock.
Right.
If you look at Rule 24, 1B, it says, when a ball is in motion, obstruction that might influence the movement of the ball other than equipment or the player of any player or the flagstick when attended, removed, or held up, must not be moved. But it's an
There it
obstruction.
is. I mean, that's the.
That's, yeah.
But Lee, this would be an SS then, right? Shitty situation.
Yeah.
Yes.
SP is a shitty player. Pick your partner.
Not paying attention.
Pick your opponent.
He picked me, I can't move fast enough
Yeah,
to
I
get there,
was
pick
gonna
up the ball before he hits
I
his
really
stuff.
was trying to get there.
Yeah.
I'm a little slower then.
So yeah, so I think, and this is actually because we're talking about Rule 24 today, and that's a good example of exactly. So
Of a shitty rule.
yeah, so the magazine is right then. Right
Or
there.
an SS.
In theory.
I guess,
Craig, what would you do in real life to say play on?
Don't do that.
Have it on your roll ball.
Play on.
Don't do
that.
I'll make.
Yeah, come there.
All right, that was a good discussion there. So really quickly before we get started into everything, Ken wanted me to share with everyone that they have announced one rules site for the Great Lakes area, November 30th to December 3rd, and we'll put this in the email next Monday or Tuesday whenever I get to it won't be Tuesday, so next Monday, but it's November 30th to December 3rd, and it's in Chicago at the Chicago District Golf Association. their offices, which I believe are in Lamont, Illinois, just outside Chicago. Yeah, for the 2019. Now that they are going to, Ken said they're either going to have one in Indy or here in 2019 in the spring.
Yeah.
So, but they're probably going to release a schedule here probably in the next, I would say, month or so. So obviously you won't be able to register or anything like that until that time. But once we get confirmation that they've released a schedule, we'll send it out to you all. But just to put that one on your calendar as a potential date to go out if for those of you that are interested.
That's the new rules.
That's the new rules, correct? Yes.
Or a recap of all the old.
The destruction of all the old ones.
Simplified.
Right.
For us simple people here.
Simplified.
Yes. They're simplified.
See a big simplified now.
All right. So today we're going to cover Rule 15, 24, and 25. Hopefully, and then one other item to just get back on from last week. We had the discussion about the player dropping the ball and the caddy or someone else touching or stopping the ball before it went into the hazard. If you guys recall that lateral water hazard. So confirmed with decision 20-2C/4 is that the caddy or the other person or anyone else can't touch that ball until it goes into the hazard. If they were to touch it outside the hazard, that'd be a penalty.
So once it hits the line.
Exactly. So once it goes that line, and then it also has to meet the condition that there's no chance of it coming outside, coming back in play.
And what was it?
It's 20-2C/4. It's page 333.
So there's no virtual certainty on that rule then.
Right, exactly. You even though the laws of gravity say otherwise, if they touch it, it has to be in the condition from which they would get a redrop. Yeah, exactly. All right. So 15 here. Start with a substituted ball, and then we'll get into a wrong ball. So it's something that we talked about a little bit when we were talking about Rule 20, because with the eraser rule, we have the option to fix this without us playing the ball. But once we play it, we have to know what to do in certain situations here. So the general rule about substituted ball, in general, the player must hold out with the ball being played from the team ground unless the ball, as Jim said earlier, is lost out of bounds, substitutes another ball, whether or not the substitution is permitted. And then, so in that case, I mean, that's ideal, right? But we know that there's going to be situations where this is not going to happen, and that's why we're out there to help with those situations. So a substituted ball. So a player may substitute a ball when proceeding under a rule that permits the player to play, drop, or place another ball in completing the play of the hole. The substituted ball becomes the ball in play. So as we talked about last week, that ball becomes in play as soon as it leaves your hand if you're dropping, or as soon as your hand stops touching it after you place it. So as soon as it leaves your hands, that's in play. Even if the substituted ball is not permitted. We do have the option to fix that under the eraser rule 20-6. But if they don't fix it, the player is going to lose the hole in match play or incur a penalty of 2 strokes under the applicable rule. And then they continue to play the hole out with the substituted ball. So we'll go over a couple examples, but there are some cases where the rules specifically say that you can substitute a ball if the ball goes into a water hazard. That's one that's common, that you can substitute another ball. But if you're taking relief from a cart path, if that ball is readily available, you have to use that ball.
Unplayable, you can substitute too, can you?
I believe
say
so.
a ball?
I think, let's see.
Yeah, a ball.
If a ball. Yep. Okay, and then this, which we talked about last week, again, if there's a penalty for making a stroke from the wrong place, there's no additional 2-stroke penalty for substituting the ball. They just get those 2 strokes, so that quantity discount that we talked about last week. All right, so here's a picture of one of the examples that we just talked about, but in this case, the player is taking relief from the cart path, which she's able to do, but she needs to use that original ball, and so when she's dropping here, she is substituting a ball, which is not permitted. But however, because that ball left her hand, it's now in play, and so she can fix it if she wants to, with no penalty. So if she realizes, or you're there and you say, no, you need to use that ball, she can not get any penalty, pick up the right ball, drop it again in the right place. But if she hits it, as soon as she hits it, she's got those 2 strokes locked in, and she needs to continue playing out with that ball. All right, so now we're going to switch over to a wrong ball.
All right, I got one question then. So I hit my ball into a hazard, water hazard, right? And I can still see it, but I'm not going to play it. I can pick it up out of there, and then I can substitute that ball.
Correct.
Because it was in a hazard. Even though it wasn't in the water where I couldn't retrieve it, I can still substitute that ball.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct. I think there's another example, casual water. I think if the ball's not readily retrievable, that would be another option where you can substitute. Right. So if there was let's say that the table here was casual water and it was 2 feet deep. If your ball was in the middle and you couldn't reach it, you could substitute. But if it's sitting on the corner here and you can get it, you have to use that ball.
But you have to be able to identify that ball. And let's say there's 3 or 4 balls in that casual water, and you don't want to go get yours.
We're gonna get to that.
Okay.
But yeah, if they're well,
So that's virtual certainty.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I mean, you have to have known a virtual certainty, so you don't necessarily have to identify the ball. But if there's more than a 5% chance that the ball could be somewhere else, then you do need to identify it.
You put a number on this now?
Yeah.
5%.
Yeah, virtual. No. I actually last year I asked David Stabler, who's the director of rules, and I asked him if this 95% thing was something that basically I asked him how did he come up with 95%, and he said, oh, well, whatever. I'm not exactly sure what he said. He said something about statistics and two standard deviations or 3 standard deviations, whatever. But anyways, he said, yeah, go ahead and you can use that now. So that was last year after they announced the 95% thing.
You'd have to know what their set of assumptions was to understand
Sure.
what a single standard deviation is.
Sure. All right, so we'll go over that in more detail in a little bit, but yeah, if it all comes back to that number.
I knew the answer. I just wanted
Okay. I just want to make sure I did.
Just check it.
All right, so a wrong ball, straight from the definitions here, a wrong ball is any ball other than the player's ball in play, provisional ball, or second ball played under Rule 3-3 or Rule 20-7C in stroke play. So a ball in play includes a ball substituted for the ball in play, whether or not the substitution is permitted. The substituted ball becomes the ball in play when it has been dropped or placed. So we know all that. So when we're thinking about the difference between a wrong ball and a substituted ball, it's always good to kind of go back to this definition of a wrong ball here, because a lot of times whether the player has to go back and fix their mistake determines if it's an actual wrong ball or if it's a substituted ball. So the way that I kind of look at it is that a wrong ball is not always the incorrect ball. It could be an incorrect ball could be a substituted ball and not a wrong ball. And when we go over what the player has to do for a wrong ball, they have to go back and fix it. Whereas a substituted ball, they keep playing on. So we do need to know the difference, because how the player rectifies the error depends on what this ball is actually. All right, so in match play, if the player makes a stroke at a wrong ball, they lose. And if the wrong ball belongs to another player, its owner must place a ball in the spot from which the wrong ball was first played. And then if the player and opponent exchange balls during the play of the hole, the first to make a stroke at a wrong ball loses the hole. When this cannot be determined, the hole must be played out with the balls exchanged. So some of you may have had to reference this question or this rule for a question that was sent out by one of our rules officials. And
From Mexico?
yes,
Carlos.
but
Real poser.
yeah, exactly. But anyways, his situation was that both players played a wrong ball. And it was match play. How do you determine who lost the hole or what the penalty is? And so in that case, it's the first player that hits the wrong ball.
If it can be determined.
Right, if it can be determined.
If it's not, you play out the hole.
Sure.
What would prevent it from being determined?
That's what I was thinking. It's very rare.
Let's say that they hit the shot at the same time, or let's say that they find out. I mean, I guess that would be the case.
Would have to be the only.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, right? Because I mean,
That's the only one.
if they found out a couple holes later, it wouldn't matter.
Well, unless they were over on the side of a hill and they couldn't tell, and they both.
Sure.
You
Or they
couldn't really
didn't
tell.
know
You couldn't
when.
see each other, and they
Sure.
both hit at the same time, or
Sure.
approximately at the
Or
same
around
time.
the same time. Sure.
They hit around the blind corner, one's on the left, one's on the right. They don't
Right.
They just doesn't matter.
All right. And then the exception here. So there is no penalty if the player makes a stroke at a wrong ball that's moving in water in a water hazard, and any strokes made at a wrong ball moving in a water hazard do not count in the player's score. So the player must correct his mistake by playing the correct ball or by proceeding on the rules. And whenever I see this, I think to myself, why would anyone want to play a ball that's moving in a water hazard? They probably deserve to get penalized, but the rules are giving them a break here. But I know golf is hard enough when it's when the ball is sitting still. So why? I'm not sure why someone would want to try to hit the ball that's moving in the
The
water.
pros
hazard.
would have no trouble doing that.
Yeah, sure. But I guess if you have something that's oscillating back and forth or whatever, maybe
Or you're on your
that's
downswing and it
that's
then
the
it breaks
situation.
loosens and starts moving.
Sure. All right. In stroke play, so we just talked about match play. In stroke play, the competitor is going to incur a penalty of 2 strokes if they hit a wrong ball, and they need to go back and fix their mistake. All right, and going back and proceeding under the correct way to do so. If they don't do that before they tee off on the next hole, or in the case of the last hole of the round, they will be disqualified. So this is something that they have to fix. So anytime we hear about, as rules officials, anytime we hear about wrong ball out there, we always want to make sure we're getting to the bottom of this right away, because the players need to go back and fix it before they tee off. Or in the last case, or in the case of the last hole, before they leave the putting green. So the this point here just says that any strokes made with that wrong ball or any penalties do not apply solely to the plane of that ball. So if I was to hit this wrong ball in a water hazard, I wouldn't get that 1 stroke penalty from taking relief from that. I would just get the 2 strokes for playing the wrong ball, and I would go back and play out the hole.
You play from your original spot,
Correct. Yes.
right? And then the person's ball that was hit places it.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Provided they know
provided
where
you
it
know
was.
where it was.
If not, then you
Yeah,
drop.
exactly. Which in most cases, you know, you may have an idea by looking at a divot or something like that. But I mean, you know, there could be cases where you don't know, or it could have been a really nasty area, which is why they thought the ball was there, and they just kind of have to estimate it and drop it at that point if you're not sure the exact spot. I would say this happens fairly frequently. I mean, probably more often than you would think, because the player is allowed to identify their ball, which you would think that
They should do.
But
it happens.
Oh, exactly. And I mean, I know, you know, from playing myself, I mean, there's times where I hit a ball and then I'll be walking up to the green and I'm thinking, gosh, did I even look at that ball when I hit it? I mean, I don't even know if it was mine. So
My partner and I did it in the senior 4-ball, or on the mid-am senior.
Mhm.
We hit the wrong ball and they hit the wrong ball.
Yeah.
We both hit each other's ball.
Sure. Definitely happens. So.
Everybody
No wonder you can't fix it.
Ian?
Yes.
No wonder you can't get anyone to play with you.
Well, unfortunately, it was my partner, not me. Then he was concerned that the other guys were mad at him.
Yeah.
If you have the player that hits the wrong ball, all right? They have to go retrieve that ball and bring it back for the other player, or can they drop it, or can that other player drop another ball in that spot?
I mean, you have to establish certainty that that's the player's ball.
So you have to go
So
look at
I would probably go forward to look at it, but I mean, if that person's certain that that's their ball, I mean, I guess in theory they could place another ball, right? I mean, I guess, you know, you'd have the same thing if they hit it in a water hazard, and you know, you'd have to make that assumption and be virtually certain that was the ball. Because you would, I mean, it wouldn't be fair for them to have to swim down to the bottom of the lake to get it. But yeah, I think if you're not sure, you definitely got to go find out.
I'm just thinking about pace of play, if they hit it like 200 yards.
Yeah, you know, I mean, in that case,
walk all the way up there and then walk all the way back.
if you think that there's certainty that ball was that player's, then yeah. So, I think that's perfectly fine.
Just says he must place a ball.
Yeah.
easy.
And then here it just says that, again, we go back to our exception. If the ball's moving in the water hazard, we're okay. So no worries there. All right, kind of short one here, but the key decisions in this one, 15-5, 15-13, 15-14, 15-1/2.5. All right, we've got a little quiz here on this one. So I just want read through this. So a player unable to find his ball, and don't look at the answer in the decisions unless you want to. But a player unable to find his ball after a brief search drops another ball B under Rule 27-1, stroke and distance, and plays it. 27-1 would be unplayable.
Stroke and distance.
Stroke and distance, okay.
Yeah.
And plays it. His original ball is then found within 5 minutes after search for it began. The player lifted ball B, that one played under stroke and distance, and continued to play with the original ball. All right, was this correct? And then I also want to add to it that this player, okay, so I guess first question, was this correct? No. Okay, so what does the player need to do?
He's got to correct it. He's got to go back to where
He's got to go back and play where his ball that he dropped under stroke and distance is. So let's say that the player does that and then takes 3 shots from that point to finish the hole. What is the player's score for the hole?
With his original ball, or
With the ball that he dropped under Rule 27-1. So let's say that this happened here, and then once he fixed it, he took 3 more shots to get the ball in the hole.
What was he laying though? One.
Let's say that the
His
first shot
original
here
shot, yeah,
was.
that's one.
Let's say
That's
six.
So basically, you got
Kyle,
a 4, and then
six.
you put
You got the drive,
two-stroke penalty.
2-stroke penalty, and 3 more.
So we've got the drive.
It's either
Okay.
6 or 7.
So
It's
he
either a
goes,
trick shot or
but
not.
remember, so he goes back and he takes stroke and distance.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. I thought he was doing it off the
Yeah.
second shot. Okay.
So
I heard a 7 from out there and
Yep.
7. Are we good with 7?
Yes.
no, I think he hit the ball too many times to make a 7,
Right.
right? Because he got 3 penalty shots, right? He got 1 penalty shot under 27-1, and he got 2 shots for playing the wrong ball,
Right.
right? And then he hit a drive. Then he hit a second. He hit the shot with the replaced ball, and then he hit 3 more. So I thought he hit 5 shots and got 3 penalties.
All right. So is there one penalty that we might be missing? So think about what this player did. So
He picked up the ball and play.
they picked up their ball and play. So we've got a penalty for that too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That's where I was.
So this player actually made a 9.
So you got 2
So
and
we've got-
1 on the
We
penalty
got
for that.
the 1 stroke penalty, as John said,
For stroke and distance.
distance. We got another. So actually, let's just go by shot. So the drive, player can't find it. He drops another ball under stroke and distance.
2.
So that's a 1 stroke penalty. He hits that second that ball with stroke and distance. That's 3. He then picks that ball up.
That's 2 more.
That's 2 more. He plays a wrong ball. That's sorry. Let me.
It's only one
No.
to begin
There's
with.
a
Sorry.
quantity discount.
Sorry. Correct. Yes. So wait. So let me just get this straight here. So he picks up the ball. That's 1. He then
Put your shoes
plays.
back.
He then plays a wrong ball.
That's 2 more.
That's 2 more. And then when he goes back, he hits 3 more shots. When he goes back and fixes it.
There's your tee sheet.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. So I think we talked about this last week or before, but when I was doing this,
9.
it's 9, correct?
Mhm.
So as Jim was saying,
Set up your strokes and
I usually make a T-bar here, and as Lynn can attest on my sheet there, I've got it written down here.
S&P.
So we've got it written out, and then we've got the tee shot, 27-1 penalty, our second ball under stroke and distance, 1 stroke penalty for moving the ball in play. But we do put it back, so it's just a 1 stroke penalty. We're not playing from the wrong place now. But now we hit the ball. We hit a wrong ball. So that's 2 because, and then we hit 3 more shots to finish out. So that's 9.
Okay, that's what.
I think I call the rover.
All right, and then the actual decision here, it goes through everything here. So it says no when the player put the substituted ball into play at the spot the previous stroke with the intent to play it, he proceeded under the applicable rule, aka stroke and distance. Therefore, he can't fix it. So the original ball was lost, et cetera, et cetera. When the player lifted ball B, which was his ball in play because he played under stroke and distance, he incurred a penalty of 1 stroke under Rule 18-2. When he made a stroke with the original ball after it was out of play, he played a wrong ball, and then incurred a penalty of loss and hole in match play or an additional penalty of 2 strokes in stroke play.
Correct.
And then we added the fact that he got 3 more strokes after he finished, or after he went back and fixed it. This just says here that if he didn't go back and fix it, he would have been disqualified. All right, any questions about 15? All right. So obstructions here. So we have two types of obstructions. I guess technically three, but we won't spend time talking about those TIOs. But we're going to talk about movable obstructions and then immovable obstructions. So first, movable obstructions. The player can take relief without penalty from a movable obstruction. So if the ball does not lie in or on the obstruction, so think about a ball that is resting up against a bunker rake, that would be an example, or maybe a ball that's resting up against a trash can that you can move. The obstruction may be removed. If the ball moves, it must be replaced and there's no penalty. So, and then this is also provided that the movement of the ball is directly attributable to the removal of the obstruction. So if I was lifting up a trash container and I put it down to the side, and then as I was coming back, I kicked my ball, that's still going to be a penalty. But if I was moving the trash can and the ball moved because of that, I would just put the ball back and there'd be no penalty. So a good proper procedure for this, if the player thinks the ball is going to move, they should mark the ball with a T. They're going to leave the ball there. They're not going to pick the ball up. But a lot of times, I'm sure many of you have done this with the ball in a bunker. Is you got the rake, the player put the rake in the bunker, and it's on a side slope. You put a tee down right next to the ball, pick up the rake. If the ball doesn't move, play on. If the ball moves, put the ball back where that tee is, and then you'll be set to go. And then if we know in the case that if we can't find the exact spot on where to put it, we need to keep moving it around until we find a place that's not closer to the hole where that ball will stop. And hopefully it's not a case where there is no spot not closer to the hole, and that player would have to go outside the bunker with the penalty. Hopefully that's why we like to have the rakes outside of the bunkers. So if the ball lies in or on the obstruction, so if the ball was sitting on top of the rake in the bunker or in the trash bin, then we have a little bit different procedure. Or maybe on someone's lawn chair at a pro tournament or something like that. In that case, the ball must through the green or in the hazard be dropped directly below or directly under that place where the ball was. So if it's sitting on a spectator's chair, that player is going to move the obstruction out of the way. They're going to grab the ball and they're going to drop on that spot directly under where the ball was. Or in the case of a trash container, same thing.
I'm curious, just for my information, how many of you guys play a course that has the rakes in the bunker, and how many play a course where they are outside?
They're usually in.
Yeah, one.
I know it.
Yeah.
You know, do you have a rule, a guideline? It's on our card.
It's not consistent.
It should be out.
It should be, yeah. But how many of you?
Well, greenskeepers would rather have them in, so they don't
I know
have
it,
to
and
deal
that's
with
what
them where.
That's what ours do, and they prefer them in, and so.
It's easier to
Well,
cut
from
the
a
grass
cost
around there.
standpoint,
And from it's a cost and a maintenance standpoint, so I've lost it every year in our discussions with the Greens Committee. But I'm just curious as to where you guys are where are you?
Oh, we do both.
There is no.
You could have a lot of them have the little stickers on there.
Yeah.
Keep them in, keep them out. People,
Ours are stickers.
those are
leave
for
them in.
everybody else. Those are stickers are for everybody else.
Members tournament.
Yes.
Still both, or do you?
Oh, yeah, we abandon all rules for member tournaments.
There are no shitty rules.
No shitty rules. I like that.
Well, I'm glad I asked that question.
I would think there are more in than out.
I know what golf course I want to play.
I would, okay, that's, is that a consensus here? Generally there are more in because of the maintenance and cost than out. Yeah, that's okay. That's sort of what I thought. But like I said, I've done this every year. We argue about it, and then we just continue in our guidelines for the members at the club.
That's really a rover's job.
Yeah, I know.
Move them all when they're rovers.
And we go back and you put them in.
Yeah, we're gonna go to every bunker and start taking bunkers.
But we try. I tell everybody try to put them at least away from the edges and put them in the middle of the bunker. Go from there. Okay.
think that's a good
Yeah.
good practice is just to put them in as close to the middle of the bunker as possible,
Yeah.
so there's no rule situations that come up.
The sad thing is when they groom the bunkers, they take the rakes out.
I know
Yeah.
that.
And lay them on the edge, groom the bunker, and then when they drive out, they throw
Put them back in.
Yeah, so what, they gotta move them to cut the grass, or move the rake to bunker, but one of those two's somebody gotta do something.
Okay.
Who does it first? Who does it
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Sort of like hitting a lawn.
Yeah.
All right, so this is just saying here that the ball may be clean when lifted under this rule. You would hope so if your ball was in a trash barrel that you'd be able to clean it. And then here it says when a ball, and this was what we talked about a little bit earlier. When a ball is in motion, an obstruction that might influence the movement of the ball, other than the equipment of any player or the flagstick when intended, removed or held up, must not be moved. So in our case that we talked about earlier, that ball where for the putt that was conceded, that ball would be not equipment; it would just be a movable obstruction. I guess is what you'd define it as, right? Because it's man-made. And then in that case, if it might influence the movement of the ball, we have a penalty, 2-stroke penalty. Here it says, it does have a note to exerting influence, see rule -2, so it kind of goes back to what you said, Jim, when we were talking about that. And then the note here, if the ball to be dropped or placed under this rule is not immediately recoverable, another ball may be substituted. So if you see your ball in that nasty trash heap, you don't have to actually go down there and grab it. You can just leave it for the landfill, and you can drop another one without penalty. All right, now we're going to switch over to immovable obstructions. So again, these are man-made objects that are not able to be moved. So
Kyle?
Yes.
Dan, we were talking previously regarding a ball in motion on the putting green, whether you can pick up the flag stick if it's laying on the green.
Right.
There's the last sentence of 24.1.
Correct. Yes.
Just above the note.
Yep. So that is definitely allowed. You can move that flag stick.
So Patty was right.
Correct. Yes. Patty was right, and then I believe Tony pointed that out when we went over it. So.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So a movable obstruction, cart path, shelter, a lot of different things that fall under this definition here. But you do get relief when there's interference with the ball, the stance, or the swing. So ball, stance, swing, area of intended swing if you really want to include the entire thing. But then if the ball is on the putting green, you also get relief for the line of putt. But if it's off the green, you do not, which we've all seen this. It's common to have sprinklers just off the edges of the putting green. If the ball is on the fringe, the player needs to play over that or play around it. Now there is a local rule.
There's a local rule
Page
of interference.
Exactly. So page 559.
Yeah.
That's in the appendix. And as Tom was saying, if there is a obstruction within 2 club lengths of the putting green, and the ball is within 2 club lengths of the let's say it's under obstructions 0.4 there at the bottom of 559. But if the ball is within 2 club lengths so I'll just read it exactly. So if the ball lies through the green in an immovable obstruction on or within 2 club lengths of the putting green, and within 2 club lengths of the ball intervenes in the line of play between the ball and the hole, the player may take relief as follows. And then they just find the nearest point of relief that avoids intervention and is not a hazard around a putting green, and the player would drop the ball from there.
Have we adapted that rule?
I know that we have not used it.
just locally to our course.
Sure.
But we don't for our championships.
No, yeah, we do not do that for GAM.
And the
I don't-
USGA doesn't do it in their qualifiers either.
As a comment, yeah. I mean, as a generic thing, they don't. I know that at some events they do it though. Some of the championships.
Some of the USGA events.
The PGA does.
PGA is standard at every tour event. So I would
They
imagine.
use us at the PGA.
Yeah, I would imagine that they, for the U.S. Open, they probably put this in place so that there's no confusion with the players because they're so used to seeing it on a week-by-week basis. But I can't speak to that 100%. But I would imagine that the USGA tries to make things fairly consistent with the tour so they avoid any major issues that come up.
Is this the rule that's actually differently spoken of by the RNA?
No, that's the embedded ball rule. And we'll get over it. So they just treat
I
that a
thought
little bit
there was a
differently.
certain distance from the ball is from the hazard, whether it's on the green. On your line under the RA, you can actually move the ball, whereas in our rules you can't. Even though that's not interfering with your direct stance or swing, it had something to do with if it's within a club length of where you're standing. In RNA, you could get relief from that, even if that's on the green, you're not.
Sure, I don't know for sure.
That was brought up in one of the tournaments, and I just can't remember
Right.
exactly which one and exactly what they were saying. But
Yeah, no, I mean that very well could be before they've unified the rules. I mean, right now these rules as we read them are the exact same for the RNA and the USGA, but prior to them coming together, that could very well have been the case. I don't know.
well, they're not talking about the next year's rules. They were talking about current rules.
Well, these rules are both RNA and USGA,
Yeah.
so there's.
But there's still a couple
There's
of
no
differences in there.
You're saying you're saying PGA has this local rule for all their tournaments?
PGA has this.
And I think the RNA does too.
Yeah, so they just use the local rule of the tournament you were looking at.
Something like that.
Right.
But, there was a difference between the two.
But there's
And I couldn't remember
There's
what
no
it was.
difference between the RNA and the USGA rules at all. These are them.
With the exception of local rules.
Well, sure, right, but it's all in here. It's all in this book.
Right, but the embedded ball rule is different
It's
under
still-
Appendix 1 for us than it is for them right now.
No, we just put the local rule in. They don't.
They don't.
Right.
It's still the same rules. We just choose to use certain local rules. They choose to use certain local rules, but
Semantics.
the actual But it's not. It's because it used to be completely different rules.
Right.
Or not completely, but they used to be separate, and then they unified them. I forget when that happened, but.
Kyle, at one of the tournaments, the European tournaments, the announcer said it was in the handout to the players that they were allowed to move sprinkler heads.
That's a local rule.
So it's a local rule that
Yeah.
Sure.
was specific to the European.
To the tournament, yeah.
We don't see that interference on a green that often, but you got it number 6 there at Barton Hills. Remember for the GAM last year, that whole location, if you were behind it, you had to putt through the sprinklers on 6.
We got a little bit too on that. It's number 6.
Part 16, part 3 got a sprinkler right off the fringe too. Yeah. There was one tournament we had, I forget what it was, I think it was an amateur someplace. We had, was it Muskegon? Does Muskegon have a lot of sprinkler heads right off the green?
I think they do.
And we considered putting that local rule into effect, and we did not. So,
I know we talked about it at Lakelands too, because we have, several of them right up on number 8. There's a sprinkler that's right there, and actually
Right on
they
the
talked
fringe.
about how they were going to cut it, such that ensured that the sprinkler was off of the green as opposed to right on the edge, and the way it was at that time. But we ended up, I think we adopted for the tournament, we adopted that local rule in, for that tournament. Yeah. And because it's on our card and we adopt it all the time. But I know we talked about it with the GAM folks as to whether that was going to be included or not, and I think they did.
All right, so for the relief procedure, we're going to find our nearest point of relief, and when through the green, we're going to find that nearest point of relief, or nearest point of complete relief, and then within 1 club length of that point, not near the hole, that player is allowed to drop the ball. Now, what is our nearest point of complete relief or nearest point of relief? So it's the reference point for taking relief without penalty from interference by an immovable obstruction, which we're talking about now, an abnormal ground condition, so casual water, burrowing animal hole, or ground under repair, or a wrong putting green. It's a point on the course nearest to where the ball lies, that is not near the hole, where if the ball were so positioned, no interference by the condition from which relief is sought would exist for the stroke the player would have made from the original position if the condition were not there. So what that all means is that it's the point where the player does not have interference from whatever thing they're taking relief from, whether it's a cart path, casual water, et cetera, et cetera. And we're speaking in reference to, and we saw that last week when we watched a Jordan Spieth video. It's in reference to the shot that would be played if that, in Jordan's case, that casual water was not there.
But you could stand in it if you changed your direction.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And he was allowed to stand in it because his original shot was he had relief from.
Right.
But after that, he was able to step in it, but still satisfy the rule.
Right.
And then here, in order to determine the nearest point of relief accurately, the player should use the club with which he would have made his next stroke if the condition were not there to simulate the address position, direction of play, and swing for such a stroke. So keyword there is should. Player is not required to use the club they would most likely hit, but it's a recommendation. So a lot of times you'll see, especially kids or people that don't know the rule, they'll just take out their driver and take their stance and put the tee down. More often than not, that tee should probably be a little bit closer, or I guess you'd say farther away. But in that case, as long as they're within the general area, it's okay. Now the problem is you get to a point where that player takes a driver instead of a wedge. They get a little bit extra distance and they drop the ball within that that very end of their nearest point of relief. Then we might have an issue where they're actually taking relief from the spot that they were not allowed, or dropping on that spot. So again, it's recommended. It's not required. But when the player does take their stance with the club they're most likely to hit, after they measure that point, they can use any club to determine that club length. So most time you'll see the player grabs a wedge or whatever club they're going to hit. They put the tee down on the ground, and then from that tee they'll pull out their driver and drop within that driver.
But if they don't do any of that and they just clear the cart path, they get off of it and just drop it. As long as they're off of that and it looks like it was within that club length, they're good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Once the ball's dropped, it's a play.
Right.
Right.
But one of the decisions says no harm, no foul. If it's within the area that is appropriate, then it doesn't matter that you got it there by
Correct.
an incorrect method.
Yeah, but as long as it hits within that 1 club length from their real nearest point of relief, then you're fine. All right, so in a bunker, the player is going to drop it as well. The only exception is that the ball needs to be dropped in the bunker. However, under a penalty of 1 stroke, outside the player must lift the ball and can drop it outside the bunker, keeping the point where the ball lay directly between the hole and the spot on which the ball is dropped, with no limit to how far behind the bunker the ball may be dropped. So that's kind of our lying back option. But this gives the player the opportunity to take a 1-stroke penalty and come out of the bunker if they'd like. Now on the putting green, we're going to place it. So we're gonna place it at that nearest point. We're not gonna get that one club length there. We're gonna place it at the nearest point of relief. And it does say in here that the nearest point of relief may be off the putting green. So you may be taking relief from a sprinkler head on the green, and your nearest point might put you in the fringe.
Or are you placing it on the fringe, or you're dropping it on the fringe?
You're placing it.
Still placing it, even though it's going to be on the fringe.
Yes, it's where your ball comes from.
Okay.
And that's why we have the same kind of thing with if we're taking 2 club lengths with a lateral water hazard onto your green, we drop on green as opposed to placing it. It's where the ball is coming from. Then on the teeing ground, if the ball lies on the teeing ground, the player must lift and drop it. I guess this would be if you were on like a wrong teeing ground or something like that, and you were up against a tee marker that couldn't be removed or something like that, or maybe a bench that was put in the ground and couldn't be moved on the teeing ground. That you would get relief there. If you're able to go back and re-tee, you can obviously tee it up. This rule wouldn't apply for that. And you can clean it. And we just talked about what we talked about last week in terms of dropping any of these things that require a redrop. You would redrop if it rolled near to the hole, or it rolled into a position where you had interference from that condition, whether it's a cart path or whatever that you were taking relief from.
Kyle, because it's you hit your second shot onto an adjacent teeing ground and not onto the green, and your ball comes to rest against the tee marker. Because the tee marker is an immovable obstruction, but you don't right.
It's not your tee.
It's not your tee, right?
It's not immovable.
It's a movable obstruction.
It's a movable obstruction if it's not your tee.
Right.
But now, if you move that tee marker, you'd have to know exactly where to reset it, or the rest of the field doesn't have the same teeing ground. So would you treat that as an immovable obstruction as opposed to a movable?
I mean,
Actually, it's not. Actually, I think if it's your tee, it's fixed.
It's fixed.
Only
Not
for the
immovable,
first shot.
it's fixed.
Only for
Right.
the first shot.
On your,
So anywhere else, it is what it is, and that's a movable obstruction, right?
the thing is, if you don't put it back in the same place, now you have modified the tee box for the rest of the game.
Understood.
Yeah, but the chances of getting it back are pretty good. I would think.
So I'm just curious if there was a specific.
Let's see here. I'm just in Rule 11 right now. So status of tee markers after first stroke. Under Rule 11-2, tee markers are deemed to be fixed before making the first stroke with any ball from the teeing ground. Are tee markers movable obstructions thereafter? Yes. So in that case, they're always you just move.
So they're fixed.
Back.
They're fixed for the first
shot of the hole that you're playing.
And even if it's still the hole you're playing, they're movable after the first shot.
Correct.
Yeah, and if you look at the decision 11-2/1, status of tee markers after the first stroke.
Pretty specific.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a movable obstruction. Move the damn thing.
Relative to relief from a immovable obstruction. It's a stance or swing, but the player is not entitled to play towards the hole. Is that correct?
Well, the player isn't entitled to a stance or a swing. It's where the ball is. Right?
So theoretically, if I'm playing that way towards the green, then my ball is here, 6 inches away from this immovable obstruction.
Right.
I'm not I don't necessarily get relief just because I want to play that way. If I can stand sideways and hit it sideways without having interference with stance or swing.
No, I think if you're swinging with your
you want to hit that way.
The
Yeah,
question you
that way.
ask as a rules official is, if the obstruction wasn't there, how would you play your ball?
Right.
Which direction are you playing?
So
Yeah,
that,
in that case,
then
you would get relief.
You would get relief.
But you don't get line of sight relief unless you have a TIO, right? Is that where you guys get in the TIOs only?
They get
Where
line
sight?
of sight relief.
That's because I've been in the high school stuff. Well, what about line of sight? It's like, no, there is none. Well, they do in the pro tours.
No line of sight, no line of flight. There's nothing. It's just,
That's because it's temporary.
right. And it only applies to their
It's
tours.
only gonna be here for the convenience of the thousands of people who are also there.
Right. Exactly.
what's the difference between loose impediments versus obstructions versus, we ran into it last year in a playoff. They had boulders along the team box is like so the
Carts
couldn't go on there.
Mm-hmm.
And the competitor hit it over the green close to it. You can move them. I mean, nobody did, but they were fixed. Are they fixed? Are they movable?
So a loose impediment is something natural.
That's a boulder's natural,
But if it's
Right.
embedded, you can't.
but it
move
says, doesn't say boulders. It's not embedded. They were
Well,
They
think
were-
about
They're outside the green.
outside the green.
They're
interrupting
the tee box.
think about Tiger's
Tiger
Tiger's
Woods and his
Rock.
boulder, yeah.
Tiger's Rock.
If you can get enough people in there,
Exactly.
yeah,
So
it's not the way place.
what's movable? What isn't? It's
Without
not.
undue delay.
The course is 40 years old. Those boulders have been there, but you
Sure.
still can move them. But, so legally,
You can move them.
you can move them.
Right. And the player wouldn't get relief from the big boulder that's just there naturally. If it was manufactured and cut up and placed like in a stacked
Right.
way, then
Like a
you know, that-
gravestone.
Even
That
if
would
it's
be
just
different.
placed, it doesn't have to be cut up or manufactured. If it was a natural boulder and they used it for decoration on the tee box, it was
Right.
placed there.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
This player wanted relief
from the boulder? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
The boulder, the ball was at,
It was in between, it was at Pontiac Country Club. There was probably about 4 or 5 stones kind of in like a little area. And he was in between one of the stones and he wanted relief and we had this debate.
Yeah.
And we told him if he can move the boulder without undue delay, he was more than welcome to do so, and then there's no penalty. But you know, I think he actually asked us to try, and there's a couple of us that tried to move the boulder along with
Right.
him, but we couldn't do it.
It's a
So
playoff too.
he just had to play the ball.
You couldn't eat the wood.
No, there's a
I think it's huge.
You know, he was going like this. But
Yeah, but they could be 20 or 30 pounds and not get your arms around, not be able to get your hands on them.
yeah, well, yeah, but when he first said it, I just thought it was like, you know, right around the cart path there, you have those little ones, so the cart stuff onto the
Right.
team ground. But these were bigger,
They were big.
almost like a marker in a fairway. You get the stone markers out there.
Well, we ran into it at high school last year too. I had a boulder inside of a sand trap. It's been there forever. And it was big, and I'm sure about 7 or 8 of these high school girls could have moved it, but we determined that it was a movable obstruction and put it on the local rule because anybody hit in that trap was going to have interference by it. So you either had to play it one way or another. But
You take the curve on there.
I didn't know what determined a boulder versus a stone.
I would have thought they was taking that out of trap a long time ago.
Right.
One would think.
It doesn't
Yeah.
belong in the bunker.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I'm sorry?
The definition of bunker doesn't belong there. Bunker is an area where stuff like that has been removed
Yeah,
and
right.
replaced.
It's a
with
specially
sand and
prepared area.
Well-
Vegetation, there's such sand.
They had
Yeah, I would-
touched the grass in there. I mean,
Right. Was there sand around it, or was it just like on the
no,
edge
it's
of the
been there
bunker?
for about 50 years, right in the middle of an unranked sand bunker.
Okay. Interesting.
What course is this?
That one that they had me go where
It's where the bunker was full of
where the
boulders.
That had, that had
red
stones.
stakes were about 3 feet into grass this high, you couldn't even see them.
Oh. You had 1 foot red stakes and 3 foot grass.
It was an interesting.
I've seen that.
All right.
It was an unraked bunker? Is that what you said?
Well, it was ill-prepared, let's put it that way, along with the rest of the course.
We played a term like that. There was a lot of bunkers between there that were not maintained. Like, a lot of grass stayed built up in it. They were not raked. They were still bunkers.
It was
That's a friendly golf course.
I even call that in to whoever, I think you might have been the one that was on duty that was asking about those things. I said, hey, these places don't look like, I mean, there are tracks through there and it don't look like anybody's ever raked them. Are they really bunkers or just a waste area? And you told me, whoever it was, so it was, they're bunkers.
Right.
So.
What's the determining factor? When we were at the women's senior last year,
Typically, if there's rakes.
we had those places that we considered
Right. Waste areas.
Yeah,
I just
some of them were kind of spruced up a little bit, but there was no rakes or anything like that.
I thought it was always kind of, if there were rakes there, it's a bunker. If there weren't rakes at all.
that's the way that you identify it.
Yeah,
Some of these had rakers.
It
Some of these had rakes around it, but they never looked like it had ever been touched, not even by the guy that does it with the machine.
Sure.
So,
Well, the way that you would define that is that the bunker is a hazard consisting of prepared area of ground, often hollow, from which turf or soil has been removed and replaced with sand or like. So you really go back to that definition of what a bunker is, and if it meets that definition, then it would be a bunker. And then if it isn't, I mean, a lot of times too, those areas will have a lot more rocks in them, and the rocks have been removed. But yeah, no, I mean, it is at some point in time, it's a tough call to make that decision between is it a waste area or is it a bunker?
But if you're paying the course, you make that decision.
Right,
So
sure,
when we get there, it's
exactly.
And if you're whistling streets, it's just any place the sand lays.
Right. Exactly.
Doesn't matter if we hollowed it out or anything else. It's just sand on the course. It's a bunker.
All right, so a couple of exceptions to this rule for getting relief. So a player may not take relief if interference by anything other than the immovable obstruction makes a stroke clearly impractical, or is clearly unreasonable, or if an unnecessarily abnormal stance or swing or direction of play is made. So a couple decisions that we'll go through here. And then a couple pictures as well. So just here, this note is saying that if a ball's in a water hazard, the player doesn't get relief from an immovable obstruction, which is why we mark the course the way we do oftentimes is try to not include those immovable obstructions in the hazard because the player does not get relief from them. And then this says a ball can be substituted if it's not immediately recoverable. So this is that we're talking about that. We'll go back to that picture when we were talking about substitute ball with the woman taking her nearest point of view from the cart path. That ball was immediately recoverable, so she needs to use that ball. But if it's not, for whatever reason, another ball may be substituted. And then this one, the committee may make a local rule stating that the player must determine the nearest point of relief without crossing over, through, or under the obstruction. I can't really think of any examples of this, but in my notes I have the wall at Lancaster Country Club. I've been there once.
And Lynn's got a fence between a green and a tee at Lakelands. Yeah. Right? So there's a fence right in the middle of the course.
Yeah, it's on 12.
Yeah, it protects the tee.
Right, sure, yep.
Forest Lake has a bunch of those.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So then so what you're saying is that they would need to take relief on the correct side of the fence.
They may make a local rule.
Right, yes. But if the local rule is in place, they would require the ball to be dropped on the correct side of the fence.
Site closest to your target.
Right, sure, yeah.
Pine Lake.
In my life, that's not always correct.
It's usually
Pine Lake's got remember the big fence over there? At Pine Lake, back there by the middle of the course, by the halfway house. It's got
Yeah.
so same thing.
So if you had the fence, I'm just trying to think of this. So if you have the fence, and then if your ball whatever side your ball is on, that's the side that you need to take relief on, correct? Is that kind of the way to think about it? All right, so here's a couple of situations where this first one, the player is taking a clearly unreasonable or unnecessarily abnormal stance. And then in the second situation, it's clearly unreasonable for this player to play the ball as lodged in that route. There's no way that the player could hit that ball. So even if the player is standing on the cart path, they would not get relief from that second situation. And then this player is not going to get relief from that because of the stance she took.
In today's world, you tell her that.
Yeah. I would also say in this first one, it looks like, even if she was taking a normal stance, I don't think I would give her relief from that, because I don't think that she could move that ball at all from where it is lodged inside that root. But I guess that's just my interpretation of it.
She does get she can hit herself.
She's right in the nuts.
Right.
If you're a guy.
And then as Jim stated earlier, the question that we always want to ask the players is, what would you do if the obstruction was not there? So if this cart path was not there, how would she hit that shot?
Or where you see it, like on the big tree, is one of those lightning rods.
Yeah.
Protect the tree comes down, and the ball is in the crotch of the root and against that lightning rod. You can tell me you'd hit that ball if the lightning rod weren't there?
Right.
Well, that's like the second pitch. The only way you could strike that ball is to scoop it. Right? And that's not a stroke. You can't scoop the ball,
right. Sure.
Spoon the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, the only way that you would ever hit that ball is if you had no regard for your wrist.
Yeah, or your arms or legs or anything flying.
Right. All right, so here's we're just going to go through some decisions here. So a right-handed player's ball is so close to a boundary fence on the left side of the hole that the player, in order to play towards the hole, must play left-handed. In making a left-handed stroke, the player's backswing would be interfered with by an immovable obstruction. Is the player entitled to relief from the obstruction? The player is entitled to relief since the use of an abnormal left-handed stroke is reasonable in the circumstances. The proper procedure would be for the player to take relief with a left-handed stroke, and then at that point the player may use a normal right-handed swing for his next stroke. If the obstruction interferes with the swing or stance for the right-handed stroke, the player may take relief for the right-handed stroke in accordance with whatever. So basically that player would take the club that they're most likely to hit left-handed, would find their nearest point of relief using that left-handed shot. And then at that point, they could switch over back to right-handed if they wanted to. And if their feet were on the cart path, they could take further relief from that if they wanted to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Get relief from the boundary fence?
I don't understand this at all.
He's not taking relief from the boundary fence.
So let's say that you've got the boundary fence, and then you have this much room of grass, and the ball sitting right in the middle of it. And then you have a cart path right next to that. So the only reasonable chance for that player to hit the shot is to hit it left-handed. So when they take their left-handed stance, their feet are on the cart path. Right. So they're gonna go to the other side. They're gonna put the tee, let's call it this far off the cart path with their nearest point of relief. They're gonna take one club length, and they drop there. And let's say that it ends up this far away from the cart path. Well, then if they hit the ball right-handed, their stance is going to be back on the cart path, and from there they can take their nearest point of relief, which will be over here, and then they can get one club length from there.
I can see that. It's just the way it's. You think the boundary fence is the immovable obstruction, the way it's worded.
This is
that's what
was our club championship.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rock wall there on 18.
Oh yeah.
Guy is a right-handed player. His drive was long, ran through the fairway, over the rock wall into the second tier. The ball's laying there, can clearly be struck left-handed, but not right-handed, right? So when he takes his stance, now he's standing on a cart path swinging left-handed. So he gets relief from the path, but he takes left-hand relief. Takes it
right-handed.
When he took his relief, the ball rolled out maybe this far, so he get the one club off the path, rolled out. So now you take his right-handed stance. And they protested. We had to show them the rule.
Is that a washroom?
You want me to go for that again?
All
So
of
here,
them.
so
On
I'm
18.
gonna draw it. I'll try to draw it. So let's see.
So my thought is that you're taking it, let's say yours going really is like on two different sides, and it's a garbage there. So you determine that you can hit that ball left-handed, and you want to go to the other side. Can they do that?
Well, if that's a if it's a
No,
reasonable,
see, because we were
yeah.
always told that, nearest point, no matter where it's at, let's say you're in high grass, either play the shot as it is or hit the high grass. But if he says, well, I'm gonna hit the shot left-handed, then he takes relief on this side, then he goes back to the right-handed and he's got a shot.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it goes back to the questioning of, if the obstruction wasn't here, how would you play the shot?
Right, exactly.
You got to get them to commit. You have to get them to commit to
How they're going to play.
how they're going to play the shot. Then you can help them. It's almost like being a lawyer, asking the right questions.
I mean, I think that's a great point. And then the other thing that I would ask the player is so I mean, I guess the judgment you have to make is that a reasonable stance for the shot? If you think that it's reasonable, then yeah, I think that player could get relief in that case. But if it's not reasonable, if the only reason that they're standing that way is to get relief, then yeah, they would. Mm-hmm. All right, and here, a right-handed player's ball is in a poor lie. A nearby immovable obstruction would not interfere with the normal right-handed swing, but it would interfere with the left-handed swing. So the player says he wishes to make his next stroke left-handed. Since the obstruction would interfere with such a stroke, he is entitled to proceed under Rule 24-2. May the player invoke Rule 24-2B? No. The only reason for the players to use left-hand stroke is to escape a poor lie. It's clearly unreasonable and the player is not entitled to take relief. So there's our answer.
But they'll try to do it.
Oh yeah.
All right, so and we're going to talk a little bit about what we spoke to earlier with the ball and casual water. So if the ball in the obstruction is not found, we have to have known or virtual certainty that the ball is in there. So there could be a large pool of casual water. If we saw that splash, we have virtual certainty that the ball is in there, and we're sure that it didn't come out of the water. We have virtual certainty that it's in there. We might have something else where you have a manhole or something like that that's been opened up and someone saw the ball go in that could also be virtual certainty that the ball is in that location. But if we do have virtual certainty that the ball in an obstruction was not found, the player can take relief if they want. Again, it comes back to what is that known or virtual certainty, that 95% that we talked about earlier. So if it's a movable obstruction, so let's say that there's a big thing of trash and someone sees the ball go into the trash can, but we can't find it in there. But we know it's in there. That player can take relief. They're going to find the spot where the ball last crossed the outermost limits of that obstruction, and then take their relief from there. So from that point, one club length from that point? Let's see. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
One if there's no penalty,
One if
two if there is.
correct. Let's see here. Let's see. No, sure. No, okay, sorry. So I'm getting ahead of myself. The movable obstruction would be one. It'd be one club. A movable obstruction, and we're going to move that obstruction and then place it on that outermost limit, or draw it.
Right? It's a movable obstruction. Like in the trash can, it would go under where the ball was.
Correct, correct. But in this case, we don't know exactly where the ball is, so we would move the trash can and we would drop the ball on the outermost limit of that trash can.
So you're saying like a dumpster on wheels.
Sure, yeah.
It goes in there and it went in there, but you can't find it.
Right.
You're not going to go diving for it. So.
Right. Yep.
What if it isn't easily movable? What if it's too heavy for two of you to move within a reasonable amount of time?
Same thing.
Then you classify it as immovable.
Yeah, I think that would be fair in that case.
I should hope that we don't ever have a tournament with a dumpster like that.
Well, no, it happens in a parking lot.
Well, yeah.
Where there's a car parked there.
And you can't move it because the
I
car.
mean, the car, under the right circumstances, is movable, but if the owner isn't there.
Right.
Yeah.
Common sense.
You can't justify breaking a window.
before.
All right, and then this decision, we've read through it multiple times, so we won't go through the entire thing. This just talks about that principle of known or virtually certain. And we do have to have that known or virtual certainty in order to take relief without penalty from the situation. If there's more than a 5% chance that that ball may be somewhere else on the golf course or out of bounds, we do not have virtual certainty. All right, so it's a little bit different for the ball in a movable obstruction. Again, we have to have that virtual certainty, and then through the green, we would take our nearest point of relief plus 1 club length from that outermost limit for when the ball's through the green. In a bunker, we would find that outermost limit and take 1 club length from there. But it has to stay inside the bunker. Okay, and then in a hazard, there is no relief. The player needs to take relief under Rule 26-1, so that would be a 1-stroke penalty there. And then on the putting green, you would place the ball on the outermost limits of where that ball last crossed the immovable obstruction.
So it's like a drain tile in a water hazard, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Inside
it
a
could
drain
be.
tile.
Yeah, it could, right. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Hey, Kyle, this is Tony.
Yeah.
So the 1 club length is from your nearest point of relief, not the edge of the obstruction, correct?
Yes.
It's correct. It's your nearest point of relief plus 1 club length.
Right.
Thanks.
Yep. All right. And we'll when we get to Rule 25, we'll talk about maximum available relief, which covers a little bit different but kind of similar situation. So here, as we wrap up 24, a couple key decisions there. Any questions about 24? Okay. 25, abnormal ground conditions, which again, casual water, ground under repair, and burrowing animal hole. And then the embedded ball and a wrong putting green. So 25-1, abnormal ground conditions. So again, we have interference from the ball or live ball, the player's stance, or the player's area of intended swing. And if it's on the putting green, we also have relief from the line of putt. But again, as stated, intervention on the line of play is not of itself interference under this rule. And the committee may make a local rule stating that interference by an abnormal ground condition with the player's stance is deemed not to be of itself interference under this rule. So a lot of times you'll see this is common around the green. So there may be ground under repair, maybe on the fringe of a green. The committee may put a local rule saying that it's only for relief of live ball only, not stance. So if the player's stance was on that beat up area on the fringe, they would still play the ball as it lies. I believe that we've done this for an event before. I know that I've been involved with an event where we've done it before. But it's really just to ensure that players are getting relief when their ball is in there, but not having to have them go through the process of finding their nearest point of relief when they're just standing on it.
Like sun seems.
Yep, exactly, yep.
Kyle, how about an area that it's not casual water, but it's a low area in the golf course, and when you stand there, you kind of move like this with the ground, but you don't bring up any water to the surface. Is that, and it's not marked as ground to repair. You put like a lies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something in there about mushy soil. Or is that
Yeah, mushy soil is not casual water.
Now, how about the second shot? Your second shot goes in that mushy area, and you know in the mushy area, you know it's not on the fairway, and it's inside the tree line, but you can't find it. So that's the benefit. You can't find it. Yeah. But you know it's there.
You have to find it.
You have to find it.
If it's not marked ground under repair, you have to find it.
Okay.
If it was marked ground under repair and you had virtual certainty.
Yeah. So even if it's virtual certainty, it's got to be there. But if you can't find it,
if it's not marked ground under repair, if it's through the green,
Play a second ball and bring the committee back. Whatever should have been marked, please ground under.
You can do that?
Sure. Yeah. Never reached that.
That's the reason for the second.
Okay, so we'll do it.
Isn't there a decision about water under turf? That if there's a bubble basically in the fairway, that's you get relief from that?
25-/1 is soft mushy.
Right. Because we call it boggle. So it says here, soft mushy earth is not casual water unless water is visible on the surface before or after the player takes his stance. So, yeah, unless the water becomes visible, it's not casual water. I mean, if we saw a situation where there was a bubble in the fairway, we would definitely. I mean, I would consider that to be ground under repair for sure.
Yeah, I thought there was a specific one.
You think there was in a decision?
Yeah.
Let's see here. All right, so as if you find it, let me know.
Yeah.
So relief. So the relief process, except for when the ball is in a water hazard, the player is going to take relief, just as we spoke about previously. They're going to find that nearest point of relief through the green, plus 1 club length, and they're going to drop there. In a bunker, the player is going to find their nearest point of relief, or if complete relief is impossible, as near as possible to the spot where the ball lay, but not near the hole, on a part of the course in the bunker that affords the maximum available relief from the condition. So they get that 1 club length from there. And so we're going to go over a decision that talks about what is that maximum available relief. And let's just go to that right now. So what explanation of maximum available relief? In a bunker completely covered by casual water is the place providing maximum available relief, the spot which will provide the most relief for both lie and stance. Both lie and stance or just lie. The term applies to both lie and stance. The spot providing maximum available relief might be such that the ball will be in shallower water than the player's feet after he takes a stance, or vice versa. So again, this is a situation where the player can't find complete relief, but they have to find where this maximum available relief is, and it may be where their ball is in water or your feet is in water and the ball isn't, but they still want to stay within the bunker to not have to go outside with a penalty. When you're out there and you're a trouble hole official or you're a rover, if you see any bunkers that are completely filled with casual water, or there's lots of casual water in the bunkers, it's always a good idea to call the rover over to have them take a look at it, because if it's completely flooded, we need to make that bunker ground under repair so that the player is not penalized for hitting in there and they can't find a release spot and they have to take a 1-stroke penalty. So,
well, we in the Michigan Senior Open, we had a situation like that where they created a drop area outside the bunker to drop in
Right.
without penalty
Sure.
because it was completely flooded.
Sure. Yep.
What do you do though when you play a shotgun start tournament and a rainstorm comes in the middle of the round, so you pull them all off, then you send them back out, and now one of the bunkers was completely filled with water. And other people that go in before the rain had to play from there. And
can't do anything. This guy has to
That's
play.
why they have to make money, right? You gotta make that decision.
Yeah. So yeah, no, you would just have it played as it was because it would be unfair to. Yeah, and in that case, you definitely could before you went back out and played, you could try to remove some water to at least have some area in there. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, and that it's
unusual.
Right, it is, and if that's the case, I mean, depending on the weather forecast, you might want to wait an extra 5 minutes to get that water either pumped out or bailed out or however you want to do it. But yeah, it definitely could happen in that situation. It doesn't have to be a shotgun start; it could be tea time. Well, right, as long as there's been players that went through that spot in the golf course.
You're in place to spin it overnight.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Ask Lee. We rate bunkers.
Yeah. Yeah, and then here, if the player didn't want to take maximum available relief, they could, under penalty of 1 stroke, outside the bunker, take it out and drop it, keeping the point where the ball lay directly between the hole and the spot on which the ball is dropped. So there's this kind of our unplayable / line back option kind of here. On the putting green, the player is going to lift the ball and place it at the nearest point of relief. So no extra club length here. And then the player may, let's see here. If complete relief is impossible, they're going to place the ball at the nearest position to where it lay that affords maximum available relief from the condition, but not near the hole, not in a hazard. And the nearest point of relief or maximum available relief may be off the putting green. So you may have a large body of casual water on the putting green. The player may have to place the ball in a location that is in the shallowest of that water in order to play from there. Which I had to do in state finals at the Meadows, because I think it was the first hole and it was like a lake, and I just put the ball. I probably just played it because I didn't know anything about the rules back then, so I just tried to hit it as hard as I could. I remember I smacked that putt so hard I got about halfway there.
Watch the rooster.
Had I known the rules, I probably could have put it off, somewhere where I actually could have got to the hole. But I tried my best.
You couldn't hit it hard enough to make it hydroplane, or
I tried.
Chip it.
Yeah.
Skip it. Keep it out of that water.
But when you're young and dumb, you don't think about that.
Yeah.
So.
New rules, you're allowed to carry your own squeegee.
Squeegee and roller, one and the same.
You are?
Yeah.
Right. You're allowed to tap down the spike marks.
Yeah, I don't know if you're allowed. You're not allowed to move water though.
You're not?
No.
I play with a guy in a fall, he carries a broom. Sweep off the green, he leaves and stuff like that off.
Water's not a loosened
You can't even take water out of the hole.
I know.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So what do you do? You pick up the ball and shake the water off the heck and do the hole?
It's a free ball wash.
Oh, right. You can't do anything to the hole.
If you're playing floaters, the ball will never hold out.
Doesn't get to the bottom.
Yeah, but see now, floaters are not on the list of conforming balls.
All right. On the team ground, you'll drop the ball if you had relief. Again, this is probably going. This would be in effect not on your tee shot or going back to play from the team ground. You would obviously be able to tee it up in those cases. And the ball may be clean, which makes sense. And then if you do, you may require a redrop if you roll back into a situation where you're getting interference from the condition which you're taking relief. And then going back to what we talked about a couple slides ago, if it's clearly impractical, or you're taking an unnecessarily abnormal stance or a clearly unreasonable stroke, you're not going to get relief in these situations. Again, what would you do if that abnormal ground condition wasn't there? No relief if the ball is in a water hazard. So if there's a water hazard that has a body of casual water or ground to repair inside that, it doesn't matter. You have to take relief from the lateral water hazard with a 1-stroke penalty. And then this just says that you can substitute a ball if it's not immediately recoverable. Again, if it's sitting on the edge, we talked about this earlier, if it's sitting on the edge of the casual water, you have to grab that. But if it's sitting in 3-4 foot deep casual water, you don't need to go in there and ruin your pants to get that ball. You can drop another one. All right, so abnormal ground condition, the ball is not found. So we can have the same situation we talked about earlier where we see the ball going into a large pond of casual water, or I haven't called it temporary water yet today. But casual on purpose.
Oh, okay.
Of course. So if we know that the ball is in there, we saw it go in there, someone saw it go in there, we know that it's still in there, and we're at least 95% sure, we're good to take relief, and we'll do the same thing that we talked about before, using that outermost limit and taking our relief from there. So through the green, it's going to be the nearest point of relief plus 1 club length. In the bunker, nearest point of relief plus 1 club length. However, it needs to stay in the bunker. And then in a water hazard, we know we don't get relief from that. So we're going to take, if we do want to take relief, it'll be a 1-stroke penalty. On the putting green, we're going to place the ball at that outermost limit area. All right, so decision 25-1C/1. Ball not found in casual water or rough. So an area of casual water preceded by high rough is in a hollow not visible from the tee. A ball driven into this area is not found. The ball may be in the casual water or it may be in the high rough. May the player treat the ball as being in the casual water. So, no, in such circumstances, it is neither known nor virtually certain the ball is in the casual water. So the player needs to go back and play under stroke distance in this case. So again, when we're determining known or virtual certainty, we look at the factors outside of that or in the area that we're looking at. In this case, this high rough leads us to doubt that there is virtual certainty the ball is in casual water. And here's just a picture to kind of clarify what we talk about when we're talking through the outermost limits. So it's that point where with the natural margin of this casual water here, point B is this where we last cross the outermost limits of this casual water. And we would get, from this point, we would get that nearest point of relief from there plus 1 club length.
So if you don't know where it crossed, back to that picture, do we just assume?
You're gonna make your best estimate in that case. So it would just be like you were hitting it into a water hazard or a lateral water hazard. You may not know exactly where it crossed, but you're gonna estimate it to the best of your ability, and then take your relief from there.
Hope you get agreement from your playing partners or your fellow competitor.
Yeah. Otherwise, you get a reasonable advantage and will be cheap.
Well,
I've been given rulings wrong for 2 years.
What do you mean?
Well, big area in the girls' tournament, and nearest point of full relief, we always went sideways.
Well, okay, so
you're off the tee.
This is the situation. let me stop you. Sorry. So this situation is where the ball is not found.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right?
Okay.
So if we
I'm
know
sorry.
where the ball is,
Yeah.
you've been doing it correctly the entire time. So don't sell yourself short.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I got a lot of friends down that way. And he just smiles.
Yeah. So if you know where the ball is, you would go diagonally, as you said. You find your nearest point of relief from where that ball is from.
My
From
blood pressure way up.
Yeah.
It's expense, right? Yeah, so that just means she. Laughing there too.
Good question.
Yeah. Thought that was funny there, somebody.
Yeah.
All right, embedded ball rule. So if a player's ball is embedded in a closely mown area through the green, it may be lifted, clean, and dropped without penalty as near as possible to the spot where it lay, but not near the hole, or whatever. So basically, what we tell players, at least this year, it will change in 2019. But you tell the player to try to drop the ball right back in the hole where it is, and then if it goes back in the hole, they get relief. They get to redrop again. So that's a good thing to tell the player. Just try to drop it back in the hole. Chances are they're going to be scared that they have to play the ball from back in the hole, so they're going to drop it about this far back from there. But if you tell them that ahead of time, then they'll at least try to do it correctly. But anyways, the embedded ball rule, as it is written in the rules, is only for a closely mown area. But as we see here, you can put a local rule in there to have it go beyond a closely mown area and be through the green, which is what we do.
But not what they do.
But not what they do
in the UK.
In the UK or RNA.
RNA.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So and then the ball is embedded when it's in its own pitch mark. And is below the level of the ground. So it doesn't have to necessarily touch the soil to be embedded. Now that I know that I wasn't there for this, but I know that this was a point of contention at Plum Hollow, I believe.
Number
one. So
you can't see.
In that case, there wasn't. We didn't know for sure if it was embedded in its own pitch mark. And so if we didn't know that, then we couldn't give the player relief on an embedded ball rule. So I'm not sure exactly how that was handled, but I don't know if anyone wants to speak to that, who was there or who can remember it.
It was my player.
The senior video?
I'm sorry?
Where was that at?
This was the AM.
It was the AM when it was at Plum Hollow. They're playing in and you can't see. You're too far back. You're on the right-hand side trying to protect that area over by the trees so you don't see. And there's a low-lying area and then a slope to the hill. So now the ball hits into the face of the hill. You can see impact from that area. If you're farther enough forward, if you're not, then you see the ball disappear over the slope. So the question became, did the ball land in its own pitch mark? Well, the ball wasn't embedded deeply. So the appearance was it had hit, popped out, and rolled back down and fell into a pitch mark that was already there since they weren't preparing. Since no one saw that ball go in that pitch mark, and we didn't know whether or not it was in its own pitch mark. You can either play it as it is or take an unplayable lot, right? In attempting to play it as it lay, he hit a really chunky mud shot.
With your fault.
My fault, absolutely. The mud ball was about this big, and the golf ball's about this big. And it flew about 3 feet, and the club flew farther. So no, it didn't go at me. It's just the idea that he let go of the club because he was unhappy with the shot. But there was no certainty. There was no way to determine whether or not it had rolled back down that slope.
Was it match play at that point?
No, it was stroke.
But I'd have gone the other way. I'd have gone in the player's favor. It's in a pitch mark.
And we didn't see
That
If
would
it's-
tip it for me. I mean, first
but-
of all, I want to go the player's way if I can.
If it's in a pitch mark and the ball can't be lifted, right? Then it's embedded in the ground.
Well, you've seen the picture.
Now, I understand that, but if it's a wet area, you have a suction to that ball coming out of that mud. That ball didn't. Examine the ball. The ball, you can put a tee in there and move it around. So the question is, was it in its own pitch mark? We couldn't determine that.
Or did it roll into a pitch mark?
That's just it. We thought it hit on a slope and rolled back in. Because if it had gone into that muck, Lynn, you know as well as I do, the ball's going to stick in there.
Is he playing good or was he playing?
After that, tell us the whole story. It was the first day of stroke play, so you didn't worry about convention or anything else.
Too, right?
It wasn't his first hole. It was his fifth hole. But it was just, you know, you just have to
Or play a
turn.
second ball and punt to the committee.
Yeah. Could have played under 3-3. He elected to play the mud ball.
Right.
Then he had to hit with all the mud on it too, right?
Well, I think I don't know if this got, well, obviously this didn't happen in this case, but the other story I've heard, and I don't know if this is fictional or true, but you had a similar situation where the ball was like that, and the player hit the ball, and they just drove the ball even farther into the ground, and then the player goes to the rules official.
Now it's embedded.
Now it's embedded.
that was Bob Arity, and that was number 16 at Forest Lake. Yeah, he drove it down into the ground, said it's embedded down. I get really. It didn't take flight.
It wasn't airborne, so it's
right.
not.
It didn't take flight, so you know it's not embedded. No.
The other thing too with that,
Right hand
Al,
side
is
of number
it's not
16
fixing
Forest
that
Lake.
pitch mark until after you're all done.
Correct. Yes. If that's going to influence your shot or your swing, don't tap it down. Definitely comes into play. I think I forget what event it happened at. I think it was a USGA event. This kid that he fixed it. And I think it was match play, so I think he ended up losing the hole because of it. And yeah.
Well, didn't I show one that in the last month or so on PGA where Jason Day that fixed one? As the ball was rolling back.
No, it was Spider-Man.
No.
It was Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Well, that was
Vegas.
Yeah,
One of the
Jake's
Oh, that's who it was. Yeah.
chipped up the green and rolled back at him.
That was a
And
couple
he
of years
started
ago.
fixing it. And
I saw that was as soon as I said, "Don't do that! Don't do that!"
It's happened since then, though.
Yes.
The second one was
Can't remember who I saw.
Scotsman.
Yeah,
No, it was Patrick Harrington. The second one was Patrick Harrington.
Everything's happened to Patrick Harrington. I think.
Yeah. Oh, he had balls roll off leaves of grass.
It's bad luck. HD cameras screwing him over and get DQ'd. Yeah. Quick question: Can we lift a ball to see if it's embedded?
Yeah.
Sure.
Mark it.
Sure. Mark it. Lift it to see if it's embedded. Put it back. But exactly, JW. You can't clean it in that case. So that's one of the 5 situations where you can't clean the ball.
You have to get permission from your playing partners or fellow competitors.
You got to
Right.
You can clean it if you take relief from it.
You don't have to get
Correct.
permission.
Yeah.
Correct.
If you're going
If
to
you
pick
get
the
the
ball,
pros to be
Yeah.
embedded, then you can play it.
if you're going to pick the ball up.
Don't you just have to,
Then you're gonna take relief.
on a
Today
courtesy
you
call?
got to get permission.
No,
Next
you have
year you got
to.
to.
Penalize if you pick
Yeah,
the
you
ball
have
up.
to.
If you mark your
alert
ball with
someone.
your competitors way over on the other side, they can't hear you?
either
can't
marker
pick it up.
or
That, in today's rules, you can't pick it up.
Right.
If you're gonna, but the proposed new rules, that is going to be permitted.
How
Is
about
that
if you have a rule?
as
We
it
think-
stands.
official will
That's
apply.
right. We think
Anytime, right.
maybe.
In the
You tell
proposed
them,
rules.
or you tell somebody
Yeah.
that's in charge or playing.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you tell your marker your opponent,
Right.
or if you're standing there, you can say, yeah, go ahead and do it. You don't need to tell them. But,
Well,
right.
there's one guy in the fairway that hit a good drive and he might have an embedded ball. And there's 3 guys in the woods looking for theirs. You better wait or tell one of them.
Yeah, you gotta tell somebody or a marker or
Yeah.
official
Hey, I'm
if they're
gonna-
there.
You have to give them
I'm
the
gonna put it in my
opportunity to
hand.
observe.
Correct. All right, so the other thing with the embedded ball rule, there's 2 situations where you don't get relief. Well, two. I guess there's more than 2, but you go to page 557 in the appendix. So there's a couple exceptions. The player may not take relief under this local rule, being the local rule that we put in place to extend it through the green. The ball is embedded in sand in an area that is not closely known.
Tiger Woods.
Yep.
Under the bush, Abu Dhabi.
Yep. Or a player may not take relief under this local rule if interference by anything other than the condition covered by this local rule makes the stroke clearly impractical. So kind of going back to what we talked about in those pictures there. So those are a couple situations where the local rule does extend it through the green, but those are a couple situations that could come up where the player would not get relief from an embedded ball rule. All right, wrong putting green. And the interference by a wrong putting green occurs when a ball is on the wrong putting green. So only the ball here. There's not interference with the player's stance or his area of intended swing. However,
I think that this appendix and local rule is what I was thinking about relative to the wavy fairways. If you, on 557, preferred lies, winter rules, it says adverse conditions, so that you're not allowed to get equipment in to mow the fairway. You could declare that area is, you get relief from that area without it being embedded. That's all I.
Okay.
So you can make a local rule.
You can make
Yeah.
a local rule. You can apply this.
Which would make sense.
if you look at the drop penalty, the player.
Or you take a practice swing with a big divot and let the water come seeping in.
Yeah, man. Tomahawk club in there. And screw it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like it says you got must place the ball on a spot within a certain amount of area, 6 inches, 1 club length, etc. So yeah, I could do that.
I got a quick one too. I read this before. A lot of these waste areas are sand. So if you're gonna do that local rule where you embedded ball, you're saying any rough except for a hazard and except for sand.
Sandy areas, correct.
Sandy areas.
Sandy areas.
That are through the green, yes.
So doesn't make much sense to me. It's either a hazard or it's rough, and sandy areas to me are rough, or waste areas.
No,
Yeah,
you can
am I
have just like an
interpreting
area
it wrong
that's,
or what?
if you're playing out in Arizona in the desert and there's just sandy area,
yeah,
ball plugs in there, no relief.
I think
But if you
what
hit it-
they're trying to say is that it's not abnormal in a sandy area for your ball to be embedded. I guess that's the way I would look at it.
But Tiger had one where
Abu Dhabi.
Sure, it happens desert area. I had one happen, not to me, but when I was running the event at the ocean course at Key Island, where the balls, it was
a lot of that
18 or
sand.
something like that, and there was a lot of sand there. When the player wanted relief, but it's not a lot.
as an embedded ball.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
At Eagle Eye, we had 2 clunkers declared to be waste bunkers.
Right?
Waste areas.
Waste areas. So if a ball was embedded in that portion of the course, there would be no relief for embedded ball in those waste areas.
Well, it's just like the bowling courses up there, that whole
Yeah.
section, they all thought it was regular sand bunkers, and it was determined they were waste areas, so half the guys didn't know about it. So, but they were embedded. Half the time the balls were somewhat embedded in them.
But either way, if it was a bunker, if it was a waste area, they wouldn't get released.
Unless I took them on plate.
Unless they took them on plate. They wouldn't get free release.
There you go.
There we go.
Free.
All right, so when a player is taking relief from the wrong putting green, the relief again is only for the live ball, not stance or swing. The player is going to take their nearest point of relief and then one club length from that point. There is a local rule that can be put into place that will include the apron of the putting green as well as being part of the wrong putting greens. That's 33-8/33. Page 530. But that allows you to, if you don't want players hitting off the apron as well, to include that as a wrong putting green. And then I think we had this come up in a question earlier, but what if a player's ball is on the wrong putting green and they hit a shot from there, what does the player need to do?
It's going to hit the guys play from the wrong place. You need to sit back and correct it.
Two-stroke penalty for doing that.
Yeah,
two-stroke penalty, but they actually don't go back. They just keep playing the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it'd be similar to like if a player played from an environmentally sensitive area when they're not allowed to, they're going to get two-stroke penalty, but they don't need to go back.
But it has to be
or flower beds of mandatory relief.
Right. Yep.
It has to be a federally recognized
For
environmental
ESA.
area. It can't just be a course putting up stakes.
Right.
Birdhouses.
Until next year when it'll be a no-play zone, and then
Right.
it can be anywhere.
If you hit it off the putting green, you got to make sure that you get out of the way of the greenskeeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And replace your divot.
Yeah, pick a queen.
Yeah.
It's 150 yards. I want to pick that queen.
The other thing too about this rule, so a lot of times we'll have a double green, and then if we do have a double green, if we want to signify where the green stops and ends, usually you'll put two identifying markers, and you'll have that line between those 2 points be the end definition of the green. So sometimes I've seen it done multiple ways. You could put irrigation flags. I think we've done that here. I've seen blue stakes, but that would define a double green and make, okay, this is the green when we're playing this hole. This is the green when we're playing the other hole. And you could do that, and a lot of times you would do that because the superintendent, he or she doesn't want you playing from the green.
Well, you could stick part of the green as a wrong green, like U of M. We stick the holes over there. Is that Greg 4 and 6?
I don't remember what those are.
It's 4 and 6.
6. Yeah.
6 is the
Reverse green, yeah.
the 3-tiered one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all. It's like our 17. So yeah, you can stake it as wrong putting green.
Mm-hmm. All right, key decisions for 25.
It's got to be marked as a separate green.
Correct. It has to be marked. If that double green isn't marked, then it's just it is the putting green.
Yeah. So it's the putting green for the 6th and the 16th.
Correct. Yeah. All right, and then next week, any questions on 25?
Yeah. We've got a double green. You mark, and your ball is on the wrong putting green. Does that mean then that you can't putt it from there?
Correct. You
have to take relief.
Correct. Yes.
Yes, it's wrong green.
What, on your fourth hole?
No. Think of a green that looks like the outline of the number 8.
Oh.
You got 2 flags. One of them's the green of the hole you're playing. The other has the flag that's not yours.
All right.
But you're there. I mean, your most logical shot would be to just putt it across. The rule says you can't do it.
Well, you can, but you'll just get a penalty.
Two strokes.
Right.
You get all
Yeah.
You take relief and then
Or
putt it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Kyle, it's Tony. But in that case, if the different greens are not marked, which often they're not for regular play, how would you determine where the wrong green is?
If it's not marked, then it's not a wrong green. It's just one big green. So you'd be able to putt it in that case.
From playing either hole.
Correct. So if it was a shared green, as Lynn said, between holes 6 and 16, for both of those holes, the entire green would be the putting green.
I've not played many shared greens, but do they usually indicate that on the card as a local rule or something?
I've never seen it marked other than for a tournament. So if you're just playing a casual round of golf, it's I've never seen it marked.
I've never seen it delineated either. And even when they played St. Andrews and all the double greens, I don't think I've ever seen them marked there. Wherever you are, you know, if you're
put a little line in there to separate the two,
but
two halves.
Yeah, but I've never thought about the issue of if you're on the wrong green, if you're on that other side, you can't play there. And I've never heard anybody have that discussion.
Well, I think
it's in the rules.
What the logic would be, I think, that you want to protect the surface of the green.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If the green's in an area where people might be hitting chip shots, you don't want them hitting chip shots. So,
yeah, but
although
you can
fully,
play
if
from
you put the line in, you could chip from the other side. Then
the reason that you don't see it at St. Andrews is because they have the best players in the world playing from there, and if they're going to clip it from the green, they're not going to take any soil, or if they do, it'll be very small. But if they had 20 handicap and over tournament at St. Andrews, you better bet that they would mark every single green because otherwise,
I would argue just the opposite.
I would too.
I would bet that for normal everyday play, they don't mark it. Those shared greens are
I
just.
played there, they haven't.
Yeah.
Kind of marked.
Yeah, they don't.
Sure.
They let anyone play where.
I mean, if
Play
they
the balls alive.
Sure.
You must putt it and not tip it.
No, I don't think it's restricted.
All right, so next week is as we close up here. Next week we're going to cover rules 26, 27, and 28.
Yeah.
So we'll see you all next week.
You still got one left, Ethan.
Good job, guy.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Al.